Hey everyone, I'm here with Jeanette Archer from the UK, and she's a SRA survivor, and she's really sort of been putting out a lot of powerful stuff. I saw you, Jeanette. I was going up on a bit of a holiday last year when we had a brief period we could leave the state, and I saw you on Shaun Attwood's podcast, and it just ticked so many boxes of other stories I'd heard before, but I was really struck by how articulate you were and well put together from the story that and the life that you've had. So, and I've said this woman is going to be prominent in the future with the way things are coming out, because this is where it's got to head to, and this is what people need to be discussing, because it's at the epicenter of all the problems that we're seeing in the world, and all the agendas go back to these groups and their religion and their belief and what they've been doing. So yeah, that was unreal when I saw that one on Shaun, and I think it's been removed now too, but I'll actually, after this, I found it on Bitchute because other people have copied it, so I might put a link down there as well as some of your other contacts if people want to check out Jeanette. But thanks for joining me, and Jordan, just give a bit of an update what you're doing at the moment.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Dale. It's nice to meet you, because I've actually been listening. I discovered you a few months back too, and you, same thing, just articulate, powerful. Your voice is really powerful, and you know your stuff, and that is just so important. We need articulate voices that are courageous and don't find it difficult to talk about the real stuff, the actual agenda that's going on, because everything that's going on in the world, if you peel it back, you get back to satanic ritual abuse. It's satanic agenda. For someone like me that's survived what I've survived, I can recognize it very easily. The masks is a ritual, 6 feet apart is a ritual, all that stuff. I saw this playing out, in front of my eyes. But yeah, Shaun's was one of the first, I think it was the second public interview that I did.
You were with John Wedger, didn't you, before that?
Yes, yeah. So John Wedger was the first one. Shaun was told on his YouTube platform he had to remove everything SRA, which is why he had to take my interview down. But yeah, it is on Bitchute actually, so that's good. I need to get a link to it actually, so it'd be good if you put it on.
What about that? What do you think about that? They're now YouTube's going after SRA. Obviously, they really targeted all the medical sort of COVID stuff, and now they're picking up on the SRA. What does that say to you?
It tells me that they're shitting themselves now. That they know we're coming for them. They know. And yes, initially it was all the medical stuff, because that really was their only worry, that was going to be, discredited. But now they know is people are waking up. People are waking up to SRA. And for me, first speaking out, it was May in 2020. What happened, how my story went global and just educated so many people about SRA. I mean, I couldn't have even imagined that in my wildest dreams. But for them, the people that are trying to hide, satanic ritual abuse, they must be panicking. And this is why now they're targeting all the other platforms to try and get rid of everything SRA. I mean, we know that all these platforms are corrupted in one sense or another, some more than others. But YouTube absolutely is run by the wrong people. So Shaun was getting really, hitting the button with the SRA stuff, as some other people are on there. So it frustrates me, because I want this information out there far and wide, and, because I know as a survivor of this and living amongst it for 10 years, I know how they operate. And I know that if every person woke up to this, it would be game over. It would be game over. So it frustrates me, but also it comforts me, because I know it's because they know, and they're feeling the pressure, and they are definitely knowing that their power's being taken away, because exposure is the only thing they fear. So when they know they're going to be exposed and they're being exposed, they know there's something to worry about, because the only way they've stayed functioning in the way that they have for hundreds of years is because of our silence. Yeah. Our silence is the only weapon we have. They have, it's their only weapon. Yeah. To stop it from coming out. And they didn't count on people like myself and all the other incredible survivors now, that they didn't count on us having the courage to speak out, Yeah,
absolutely. And they, especially with what you're doing, because I think what they fear as well is our fearlessness. That's what they really fear, because fearlessness is love, really. That's what it is. And
yeah.
And that's what you're doing, and they're terrified of that. They're terrified of the people coming together, and like you said, they've controlled us through the ignorance and apathy, especially in Australia. And I'm sure you'd be aware of what's happened over here. There's been a huge interest in releasing these suppression orders, and that is game over when that hits here. And we've just seen our Prime Minister's best friend was charged the other day. So. And he's connected. He's very, very well connected in with these 28 suppression orders from the Wood Rolls Commission. So, but that's another story. Do you want to just take us, just give the viewers a bit of an idea of what it was like being raised in a cult family and experiencing satanic ritual abuse at a very young age? What age did it start for you? It was because you were in an intergenerational family, weren't you?
Yeah. So I was born into a satanic cult family. So really I probably would have even been being satanically abused within the womb, So, but from birth to 3 years of age, I was being prepared for the cult within the home. So from as far back as I can remember, I have non-verbal memories of being sexually abused and tortured. A regular thing that went on in the home was water rituals. So I would be drowned in the bath and then raped by my father. And so all this, knowing what I know now and, having that pieced my memories back together for 20 odd years, I've been recovering for 20 odd years before I decided to speak out, as I knew I had to be strong to do what I'm doing now. So I knew that what was going on in the home from a very young age was to prepare me for what was to come. So the thing is, with the cult family children, at the age of 3, you're then put into the cult itself. So from the age of 3, I was then sold. I would be taken to houses where my father would collect money and then use for rituals. So I was sold into satanic rings from the age of 3. But I was also then taken to the place that my grandfather was running for the elites, which was a farm on the Crown Estate. So elites and the royals and everything were using that farm for rituals. And my grandfather was their lackey, really. He was the one that...
I've heard you talk about your grandfather. He was one of the key abusers. What was his connection in with sort of some of these higher ups, or he was just their lackey to use their property, or
I think the thing is, within satanic cults, it goes from the complete lower levels, which are the minions, really, right up to very high levels. This particular cult was pretty large scale. So how my grandfather got connected with it, I don't know. I assume it was just a cult that had been established for a very long time. And it just so happened to have the very up higher levels, because he was made to run the farm, which was the Crown Estate. So I think it was just generally a satanic cult that ran throughout every level, because it was so big. So I don't know. I don't think he had any special connections to the royal family or the elites. I think he was just part of the cult. Cults established themselves in many, many levels. And yeah, the lower levels, you know, my grandfather was like high up within the minions, so like nobody would ever disobey him. People, they were terrified of him, you know. So the cleaners, for example, that would come in after the rituals and clean up and get rid of all the evidence, they would answer to my grandfather. Everyone that was on that farm answered to him. But then who he answered to was the elites. So that was the only time I ever saw him bowing down to anybody else, was when they then came to the farm for the rituals. And so I always, you know, worked out the fact that they were in charge of him.
Okay. Yeah. I was just interested if your family had ever spoken about your sort of genetic lineage, if like there was as to when they sort of got into the occult or not. But you know, you don't know. No.
Yeah, I mean that's research I'd like to do myself. I mean, what I know already is that I have the satanic bloodline, which was quite a hard thing to come to terms with. You know, I have that blood. So, but the genealogy side of things, like, you know, when I'm on the other side of this fight now, I do want to start learning more about me personally, and you know, who I am, you know, genetically. And yeah, I mean, I'd love to one day find somebody that could help me know all this, you know, but I am the only one in my family that has spoken out. So there's nobody to help me right now, you know, like, so the only thing I know is at the moment is that I have the satanic bloodline.
Right. Okay. Yeah. It's interesting how you can sort of look at that too. Cause I sort of do, I don't know if you like certain souls that project into certain families, even though you might carry that genetic code, there's a higher part of yourself that came here to do something else, which I think you're doing now. But would you be able to describe sort of some of the rituals or what sort of what you witnessed, just so people have got a bit of an idea of how extreme the torture you went through?
I mean, massively extreme and very varied depending on where we were, you know. So, for example, a typical thing on the farm would be I would be held captive there. I had a barn. I called it my barn because that's where my chains were. I had chains in that barn where I was chained up and held captive for days in preparation for rituals. So I would be starved and just left there, you know, for days and days. I don't know how many days because obviously I can't calculate that, but I'd say probably about 3 or 4 days is normally ritual preparation time. They do it, it's like a cleansing process. Yeah. So there's no food, there's no water, there's no, you know, no nothing. And nearer to the ritual days, then the grandfather would come into the barn and stick tubes down my throat. Again, it's like a cleansing. Torture would happen on and off through those days, but just in the way of, I say just, but compared to the rest, it's just in the way of, you know, violence, where I would be beaten and hit by him to just make sure that I didn't make any noise. I mean, I never did. I was a completely silent child, but, you know, he would just come in and kick me around a bit and then go again, you know. So that was the norm in those. So then at the end of the preparation for rituals, I would be then ready for the ritual, because in their mind, they want the child as pure as possible. They see it that it's like a purification process. Somehow they believe in their warped mind that Satan prefers that, you know. So then the start of the rituals, I would be given drugs to drink. I still don't know what that was in that incident, those times. So drugged, put in a white dress, and then led out for rituals. Now, a typical ritual on the farm would be I'd be laid out on a concrete slab. They had one there. that was there all the time. And then the Satanists would come in, they would gather, in a big circle. And then the master of ceremonies would come out. Quite often that was the queen in some of these rituals, hand round the blood, the adrenochrome. So initially everyone would start chanting and making very strange noises, because I've seen people in my life on every drug you can imagine, but there's nothing that compares to seeing people on adrenochrome. It's horrific. It's not human. What happens to them is not human. They make noises that are just like squealing pigs. It's horrific. Anyway, so all this starts happening, chanting and everything. And then what would happen to me is, one by one, in an anti-clockwise direction, each Satanist would come over to where I was on the concrete slab and do whatever they wanted, rape me, whatever way they wanted, if they, whatever they wanted to do, they would do. Then that person would stand back and the next person would come forward. So this could go on for, I don't know how long, hours. It would be 20, 30 people sometimes I would be raped by. And all at the same time, they're worshipping Satan. There would be a huge burning upside down cross in the ground. Lots of, then they would sort of group, there would be like orgies going on. It's such a sort of mass situation of different things going on, so I think it's only the fact that I went through it so many times that I have enough memories to see all these different scenarios,
Yeah.
Generally what would happen to me after that kind of ritual, I was then put into, I had a coffin that was built for me, and I would be put into my coffin with snakes and spiders, whatever they wanted to chuck in there with me, and I would be buried alive. I would be then put into the ground. I learned very quickly from a very young age how to shallow breathe. It was a technique that I taught myself so I could have enough oxygen. But the part of the reason why they do this to me and to children is because it's part of the brainwashing. They will never tell you that you're coming out, so they wouldn't say, Jeanette, we're burying you, but we are going to bring you out. I would never know if that's
Jeanette,
where I was.
Like I've heard this from many survivors, where especially the drowning and the burial rituals, it's more about the person that rescues or brings you back up at the end too, to get that bond with the abuser. Is that a big part of the ritual?
Yes, trauma bonding. It's so there is this whole thing around the rescue side of things. So what would happen is my grandfather would bring the coffin out, but he would make sure my mother was stood there. So my mother was the trauma bonding person that was used. She would be the one. For example, there was times when I was taken to my grandfather's flat, which was set up for torture. It was set up for snuff movies where children were murdered, and it was all filmed there, okay? So, for example, when I was being tortured in those situations, I would be being electrocuted and burned and, sexually tortured with sharp objects, all that horrific stuff. My mother would be sat down the head end with me, like stroking my head, saying, "It's okay, mummy's here, mummy's here." So she was always the rescuer.
Yeah.
But she was obviously also as evil as they are. So
it just strikes me exactly like what's happening over here. Like we're coming in and out of lockdown every 3 weeks, and it's that trauma bonding, isn't it? It's the same. It's a big global satanic ritual.
Oh, Dal, do you know what's going on? What I see, you're absolutely right. It is trauma bonding. What I see going on the planet now is the biggest satanic ritual ever to have happened, because they've
from the start, 100%.
They're literally playing out a ritual on the whole planet.
Yeah. Unbelievable. It's so brazen and so in your face. You know, especially I don't know how, like someone like yourself, you must just be watching it with amazement how they're doing this and getting away with it too. I was going to say, like you mentioned the Queen, they do like. I did hear your talk in Hyde Park. I think it was in London, and that was just. Like, I was driving home again that week, and someone sent that to me, and I got emotional listening to that. Cause just seeing the amount of people that were there, and I'm like, oh my God, that someone is standing up talking about satanic ritual abuse, and you're being quite graphic in some of the stuff you were talking, and I'm like, thank fuck someone's doing it, you know, because there's so much tiptoeing around, and I was just like, oh fuck, she's really gone for it. And I really saw that as a pivotal point that, you know, maybe there's going to be others that are going to get that courage through from seeing that. So, you know, well done for doing that and the work you're doing. But I have heard you mention some of these big names that, you know, names that David Icke was putting in his book in 1996. And because obviously in Shaun's interview, you didn't mention these names too. And I just went, oh, wow. So, I mean, like we've all heard these names before, but do you want to mention some of the people that you named that you're abused by?
Yeah, I mean, it's taken me a while to get to this point.
Yeah.
But the thing is with me, once I do get to this point, I will go for it 110%. So what I did in Hyde Park that day was the first time I've ever done that publicly, like mentioned those names.
That was the first time.
It was the first time. I've hinted at a few bits, but the thing is, for me to actually, one of the hardest parts of my recovery is looking at the faces of my abusers, okay? Because it's really, really difficult for me, and it traumatizes me, and it's risky that it can take me back to the mind control, you know? So I have to be really aware. Can you hear my speech?
Yeah, that's right. No, we'll avoid that. We don't have to go there then. That's fine.
It's okay. No, it's okay. I have to. It's okay. So, but this is what happens, you see. So when I decided to say the names, I had to go through quite a big process in my own personal world to know that I could do it without it throwing me off course, you know, because I've got to be strong enough to stand and fight now. So I have to be really measured about what I do, because I'm a survivor at the end of the day, and I still struggle with all this stuff behind the scenes, you know. Like I can do a graphic interview with someone, and for 2 or 3 days after that, I'm not capable of doing much at all. So I have to be quite measured. So I got to the point where I was just really wanting to do the exposure, you know, because we can't dilute anything now. We cannot tiptoe around this. It has to be so brutal and blatant and out there, but otherwise they're still winning. They're still hiding and being hidden, you know. So I knew I had to really conquer this, you know.
I could see it in your face on the day watching the video that it was obviously that was such a huge thing. And like, I mean, there was a big crowd there too, and like obviously this was being filmed. So bravo for doing it. Well done.
Yeah, and you know what we did? I don't know if you saw it, but after Hyde Park, so I dropped those names, which was Ted Heath, our Prime Minister, our ex-Prime Minister, Jimmy Savile, Leon Britton,
Gravel Jenner.
Yeah, Jenna. Right, I'm going to stop with it because I know what's happening in my head now.
Yeah,
but what we did was
people can watch that. People can watch that.
Exactly, it's there. It's there. So I've just got to be careful right in this moment now, you know. So after the Hyde Park speech, and we had an incredible crowd there. You know, people are getting so brave to join me now, you know. So what we did after Hyde Park, we walked down to Buckingham Palace. I don't know if you've seen this one. I'll send it over to you. And I stood outside Buckingham Palace, and told the world what goes on inside there. I told the world, I publicly said that the Queen and Prince Philip and the others are Satanists. I called the royal family out as Satanists, and I told people what's underneath the palace, the dungeons and the tunnels and everything, and how I was taken there by the police. The police used to come and get me and put me in the police cars and take me there. And so, yeah, it was a freaking awesome day for exposing, and that was my plan for that day. I just had to get through that, where I told the world who was involved.
Yeah.
And then we went on to the BBC and we called out, them. And so it was a really powerful day. And then the next thing, that was the 26th of June. And then the 19th of July, we stopped Westminster Bridge. We went on to Westminster Bridge and just stopped the traffic. Police were panicking. It was amazing. And called out again all the paedophiles, in Westminster. And that was amazing. And then we went down to Downing Street, and so we're not doing, the Freedom March crap. We're going to these venues, we're making it count, we're making the world listen, we're making the police listen, so the next thing we've got coming up on the 16th of August is going to be a really, really dangerous, powerful thing that we're going to do. And I can't let the venue out because I know they'll stop me from going if they hear what I'm going to do. But let's just say we're going to we're going to the location that they are going to not want us to go to the most, because it is the shop front for satanic ritual abuse. It's where the most powerful people in this country belong to, that are the Satanists. So we're going to go there and pitch up and tell the world what goes on in that building, so we're doing some really serious stuff, and 16th of August is going to be the most risky one yet. So I don't know how it's going to go down, but I'm going to go and I'm going to, again, expose them for what goes on. So that's what we want to do now. We're going round to all these different venues. We'll do a couple of venues that day as well, where the Satanists, again, the elites, the Satanists, are just operating from, thinking that they are getting away with it. Yeah. So every time, it's the risk factor, but I'm just going to go and and hopefully I won't get stopped. But no matter what happens to me now, I've done it. It's out there, it's exposed. It's like a fucking bullet train now going along, and nobody can stop it. Satanic ritual abuse has been exposed, and that's it. It's done. So it just now takes for everybody to stand up, to be the bravest they've ever been, to be the strongest they've ever been, because ultimately we're fighting for the children and the babies, and what motivates me every day is knowing that they're still going through it. My story is historical, but right here now today, children are being sacrificed and tortured, and the torture that I went through, I don't even know how I'm physically alive, let alone mentally. But I know that's a spiritual thing for me. That's my soul connection. I did come here to do this. This is why I'm alive. Satan didn't want me to live, because he knows who I am spiritually. He knows what my light is, and he knows that my soul is more powerful than he will ever, ever be able to tackle, So everybody on this planet is responsible for this now. We have to all stand up and fight against satanic ritual abuse, but exposing them, we need armies to form, literally, to go onto these farms, to go onto these locations where they're sacrificing children and burn these fucking places to the ground. We need to go and rescue these children, but we need manpower. If I had an army behind me, I would end SRA in a month. If I had that manpower, it would be over, and I would lead the charge. I promised everyone I would do that right from the beginning. I would die for this cause, because ultimately, if we don't stop this on the planet now, they will have this planet forever, and there will be no child left safe on this planet. No child will ever be safe. So it's, you know, it's make or break now. We have to do this. I do believe we're going to win this war. I believe we're already winning it on the spiritual level, you know, light against dark. But we need to manifest that now on the physical plane.
Yeah.
And we need to stand up and we need to fight, you know.
100%. Yeah. And that's, you know, that's that divine masculine component. That is the people we're sitting around. I've been researching SRA for like 15, 20 years. But like, you can't talk to people about this sort of stuff. And now, like, that's what I've got to ask for you is, how did you feel on that day? And did you always sort of know that you know that this time was going to come, and that maybe you were going to have to, like you said, you were sort of prepping and building yourself up to having the confidence to do this? And you know, I don't know what it must have been like for you when these inquiries were running after, you know, several stuff came out, and you know that botched Dickens dossier, and you know the man that we mentioned before, he was still in the House of Lords, and they were saying he had Alzheimer's and all this sort of bullshit, and that whole thing was just doing my head in at the time. And now, you know, that we're, you know, the stuff that's come out about Heath, it's just unbelievable. Like this stuff was being printed on the front page of papers, but in the UK several years ago, but it's just like they've done the story, that's it, we don't talk about it. So, you know, like how was that moment for you to actually have to not be a bloody crazy woman and actually be standing there with people supporting you in numbers? Like how did you feel at that point? Was that a tipping point for you, or a build up to, I guess, many years?
Yeah, I think it was my liberation day.
Yeah.
To actually be able to stand in a public place, literally, you know, in the middle of Hyde Park, yeah, with people listening.
More public than that.
I mean, honestly, some days it still feels surreal. I think it'll always feel slightly surreal because that's my, I think that's the way my brain manages to keep me safe. But yeah, I mean, freaking it was amazing. It was amazing. I always knew that I survived for this reason. I always knew that I had to be strong. I always knew that I had to take as long as it needed to be able to get to where I am now, you know, and it did take me 20 years of healing and recovering. And pretty much doing that by myself, you know, because I didn't have anybody. I didn't know any other survivors. I mean, it took me probably 10 years after I recovered my memories to know that it had a name, that it was called satanic ritual abuse.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, for my childhood, I just thought that was what the world was. You know, I didn't know any different. I thought this was just the world. So I had, you know, it took a long time to piece everything together and to make sense of things. So when I decided to then speak out publicly with the John Wedger interview, that was a liberation for me as well. But the Hyde Park thing, I'm full on in survivor mode now. You know, I was still quite vulnerable when I did the thing with John, but I did know that I had to throw myself into it and just, you know, it's like hanging on for dear life on this roller coaster ride and hoping for the best. Now, the difference is the person that I was that spoke out in Hyde Park and then went down to the Palace and, you know, stopped Westminster Bridge and what I'm about to do, I'm in full warrior mode now. I'm just fearless. Yeah. I have no fear left. You know, it's like there's just nothing. And I think a lot of that is because obviously every single day for me, for probably 40 years, I've been terrified, especially obviously the first 10 years, you know. So being able to just work through what I'm doing now and seeing the support behind me, meeting other survivors, people just the whole, we believe you, Jeanette.
Yeah,
Because
that's a big thing too, isn't it? For someone that's trying to it's someone that's trying to heal. That's the most important thing is to be heard, isn't it?
It is the most empowering thing for a survivor to be heard and to be believed, and to have that support. And I've literally got an army around the world supporting me. And I have days where I just sit here and I'm like little old me, and I feel like this tiny little brain stand. I just feel so insignificant. And then I think about what my story has done, and then I just like, blimey, so I do sort of swing between wanting a sort of no, I don't get that feeling now of wanting to sort of hide away, but it still blows my mind. It still blows my mind. But I think I am now the strongest I'm ever going to be. I feel my power now. And that's what I never had the capacity to do, because my brainwashing was the most powerful thing in my life. But that's not the case anymore. I know who I am now. I feel my power. I am the ultimate warrior spiritually, because I know where I come from. I know my light. I know my strength. And I'm fearless, so I'm just going to take this to the finishing line and fucking bring their asses down.
I loved it. But that's how I see it. Like when I saw you in that park and I listened to your interview, I just see this bloody ball of light. Like that, you are untouchable at the moment. And with that fearless, and you can become, people like yourself, it's like a real barometer, because you're like, fuck, if this person has the balls to do it. And that's what I'm seeing here. The way that society's going here is a lot of people know not about the SRA stuff, but they know this whole COVID thing's a load of bullshit. But there's this fear and this tipping point, and, everyone's got a different tipping point, don't they? And that's when fearlessness comes in, when you've got nothing to lose. And obviously you have decided, I'm not putting words in your mouth, but there's nothing to lose. That's how I see it. And that's when you are fearless. And that's when you're unstoppable too. So
yeah, the thing is, Dale, I don't fear death in any way, shape or form. Yeah. That's going to be my release. Do you know what I mean? That's going to be, my suicide plan kept me alive for years. The comfort of knowing I had my suicide plan, I'm not in that place in my mental health now at all, but I know what's there. I know what I'm going back to, so I don't fear death. And look, I lived amongst them. I faced Satan for 10 years, He still tries to come for me now. I have no fear of Satan. He's weak. And this is the illusion. You see, people think Satan is, the big, all-powerful dark energy and all the rest of it. No, he's weak. And he's weaker now than he's ever been. And I know that because I have literally faced him many, many, many times. I have been brought so close to death many, many, many times. There's nothing they can do that can frighten me. This is just human entities. This is just earth plane existence, that we're all here. Every person that is here now in 2021 that is awake to this truth of what's going on this planet, reincarnated for this purpose. We all planned this. We all came back. So the fact that now we're all finding each other, we're all uniting, we're all communicating, we're all planning, that's how it was meant to go down, and it's going to take the leaders, it's going to take the people that are fearless, that are going to speak out no matter what, no matter what threats they try and put out. I mean, you can imagine the target on my back, I don't fucking care. I don't care, And even if it ended for me tomorrow, I've done enough. I've done enough. The world now knows about satanic ritual abuse, and it's game over for them. It's just a matter of time now that we've got to just put it all together and finish the job.
Yeah, it's a purpose, isn't it? Like it's something greater than your experience as Jeanette. That's what you're here for. But You don't have to answer this question if you don't want, but I have heard you in another interview say, and like it just sort of sparked me then talking about that you face the devil. Did you want to? I have heard you say that these people aren't human. You didn't really want to go there, but obviously, like Ike's sort of work and people like Arizona Wilder and Sandra Feck, the psychologist in Canada, talks. She helps all these abuse survivors, and this is a common theme that she says all the time. They talk about the dark-eyed people and this sort of stuff. You don't want to have to touch on that if you if you don't want to. And I know that's a massive hurdle, but we are playing with other realms, aren't we? If I could just put
100%, 100%. Okay, Dal. What I will say is this, and I'm glad you asked. Actually, I'm glad you asked because
I know, Jeanette. I know a lot of this is it can be seen as discrediting to your information, but
I'm past caring.
The truth's the truth, isn't it? So
yeah, the truth's the truth. So here it is, right? We are absolutely dealing with non-human entities. In my experience, what I witnessed with my own eyes are these humans, because they're not human, changing into reptilian form. Yes, I've seen that with my own eyes. I don't care if people want to discredit me. They've been trying to discredit me since I spoke out. They've tried to discredit me all my life. So, whether it's just my family or it's the actual Satanists now that don't want me speaking out, the trolls and all the rest of it, right? Been there, don't care anymore. Got the T-shirt. All it's done is toughen me up and make me more determined. So they don't gain anything, So, yeah.
Thanks. I really appreciate, I appreciate you having the guts to say that, because it's crazy for people. But like, people that don't believe it, like, go listen to Sandra Feck stuff. She talks about this all the time, and she's been dealing with ritual abuse survivors for decades, and it's a constant theme, isn't it?
Listen, this is why they hide underground. This is why there's so many tunnels. Okay, the reptilians, they walk amongst us. They look like they're human form. They're not. They're reptilians. I've seen them change many, many, many times from the human form to reptilian form, and then come back to human form. The reptilian forms are very tall. The ones that I witnessed, they grow like, I don't know, 9 feet tall, probably even more. I've seen the reptilian fat. I've seen it. So I've seen it to the point where it's unmistakable. Before anyone says I wasn't tripping on the drugs they gave me, because that's not the way they worked. And it's the elites. It's the elites that are the reptilians amongst us, okay? I think they function on 2D. The thing is now, the planet's ascending anyway.
That's with your, a lot of your perpetrators were these very high elite people too, isn't it? So, this is possibly more a theme with that, the high echelon of the, satanic hierarchy than possibly what other people that have even been in satanic cults haven't experienced this sort of stuff.
Yeah, it is the elites that I witnessed as the reptilians, especially the royals. There you go, I said it.
Oh, we don't need to go there anymore. Even like Diana's best friend said it. She said Diana called them the lizards, They
are lizards. They're reptilians, yeah. They're lizards.
Yeah. It's just it's an amazing story of this planet and the hijacking and what it's all about too. And like, this is the stuff that I'm really into, is why they really want the children, because I think the human child is the strongest life force, and not just here but the entire universe, because I think we're a complete compression fractal of the universe, and they're almost trying to steal. It's like stealing a way home for them. We're trying to access the creator that we've got. It's how I look at it.
Yeah, there's two things going on that are the main factors in what you're saying. And yes, it's the life force of the child, which is why children are sacrificed in rituals, because they believe then they get the life force of that child. But here's the real bottom line earth plane issue with why they want the children, because they are completely addicted to adrenochrome. and they want a never-ending supply of adrenochrome. If you see somebody withdrawing from adrenochrome or, you know, not being able to get it, you can see it a lot now in these faces because their supply is running low. That is one of the things that is driving them more than anything. They want the adrenochrome, so they need the children.
And you said in the rituals that you witnessed and were in that this blood was collected in these rituals too, wasn't it?
Yeah. I mean, so
was that wasn't just to be consumed in the ritual. That was also taken out as well.
What do you mean taken out?
Like, was that stored to be for other people to use as well, instead of just being used in the ritual, or you don't know?
I mean, I did it. What I saw was, so my grandfather's, one of the other places on the farm was a barn with meat hooks in it, where the children would be alive. They had already been tortured. They'd be brought into the barn. So they're already adrenalized, right? So then they'd be put on these hooks alive, which would be the last stage, and then they'd be cut all the way down, and then their blood would be collected. So that is highly adrenalized blood by now, because they've just been tortured to that point of terror and everything else, and then they've been put alive, you know, still alive on these hooks. Where that blood went after that, I don't know. What I do know is that there was always so much blood collected, so much blood drunk in rituals. Whether they then had a supply that went outside of their own cult, I don't know, or whether it was stored for other rituals, I don't know. But yeah, I saw a lot of blood that was collected all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, and there was a leaked thing last year on through the dark web and that about this adrenochrome actual website. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. But I'm sure those things do exist. Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, enough of the bad stuff. Let's what have you got planned? Obviously, you said you've got this thing coming up on was it the 16th? I think you said of August.
16th of August. Yeah.
You're not.
So this is going to be a big one.
Yeah. I said you'll announce it on the day.
So what I've put out now is the meeting point.
Yeah.
So we're going to meet at this meeting point, which is in Covent Garden, the Royal Opera House, at 12 p.m. on the 16th of August. And then from there, we're going to go to the actual location.
Yeah.
Like I say, it's going to piss them right off, this one. They're not going to want us to do this.
Okay.
At all.
And so, so also with, so I did hear one of your, I think a recent one you've just done, you were talking about like a lot of protests and the freedom marches and all this stuff. And it was music to my ears, because this is what I've been saying the whole time. Is because, like, you know, obviously I've gone to quite a few of these things, and it's just this echo chamber of, like you were saying, of people going blah blah, talking about COVID stats and the same old bullshit, and everyone and just repeating the same thing to people, like you said, that we all know what's going on, and I think the ante needs to be upped, and these organisers need to be having SRA survivors and talk, especially in the country I'm in now, where we have current suppression orders on living politicians who we can name, people like Paul Keating and Bob Hawke. Paul Keating's still alive, and we have a prime minister who put the suppression order on, who's still alive. And why aren't we talking about this when we're talking about fucking COVID stats and stuff? And obviously the vaccine is a serious issue, but the way to get it to stop is to uncover the heart of it, the core of it, which is what you're talking about. So do you want to talk about maybe how you're sort of seeing what's happening with these marches, and like, do you see a point when, you know, when people like yourself, or it doesn't have to be you getting up there and talking, but just that to be a key point and key issue of of where this is
Yeah.
going and like what really needs to be uncovered, because it's time to stop the bullshit now.
I think what's very obvious to me with the freedom marches is that they are being led, the masses are being controlled by paid opposition that are being paid to control the masses. So the leaders of these freedom marches, 100% in this country, have been infiltrated and corrupted. So the people that these masses, because, you know, we get big numbers for these freedom marches, as you guys do, the people that they're listening to regurgitate the same shit over and over again, never offering solutions, just standing up there telling everyone what we already know. But it's like this God complex that, you know, it's just this, the egos are off the scale. You know, we get women up there in bloody glamour, you know, dresses and stilettos and full makeup. It's like, fucking hell, we're fighting a war. Do you know what I mean? And you're standing on this stage in Trafalgar Square looking bloody glamorous, and it's so obvious now. It's so obvious. If people aren't working this out, you know, the cognitive dissonance is still very there amongst the so-called awake. Now, there's awake and there's awake. You know what I mean? So, yeah, the freedom marches are a way to control the masses. And these people that are leading it are being paid. They're being paid by the government. They're being led by the police. They're working with the police. They're part of it. They're part of it. They lead them all in a certain direction around the streets of London on like 10 bloody mile hikes that get, they don't take them to any pivotal points, anything that's worth taking them to, you know. So been working this one out for a while now, for sure. So, you know, the days of those marches, it's over. You know, we literally need to be taking this shit to their doorstep, you know, like what Karen Brewer is organising, you know, in your neck of the woods. So, well, New Zealand. But yeah, I mean, listen, if I
know
had
what
those...
you're saying, yeah, like, I mean, I don't have the answer, but I 100% see what you're saying. So, like, even in Melbourne, we have the same 5 people get up and talk every time, the same speech. Like, yeah, what's the point? What's the point?
So, yeah, and...
Yeah, and yeah, what?
Yeah, we know this. You know what I mean? Yeah. We know that the you know, we know that it's a pandemic. We know that it's a scam. We know it's a hoax. We know about the vaccines. You know what I mean? All the poisonous darts. We know all that. But what are you going to do about it? You know, listen. The scam, the hoax, it's a smokescreen. It's a distraction from the actual stuff that they're doing. Whilst everyone's fighting against all that, and yeah, of course there was a point in time where we had to go out and make our voices heard against everything that they were trying to bring in, you know. I did it, you know. We do need to, there was a point where that was important, but now it's so clear to see that the people leading it are being paid to lead it. It's game over for all that now. It's a smokescreen. It's a freaking huge distraction, and we know it's not real. We know it's all a hoax. So what are they getting up to whilst everyone's concentrating on that? You know, the minute I have those kinds of numbers, and, you know, it's building for me, but the minute I have those kind of numbers, I will take these people around the country and we will take these places down. You know, SRA will be ended. But I need more manpower. You know, we need to get the military on our side. We need to get the police to sort their shit out and recognise whose orders they're obeying. You know, civil war is not where it's at, because that's what they want. They want the people fighting against the people. They want that division. They want that divide and conquer. They'll be more than happy if we're all killing each other, wouldn't they? It's a revolution. We need revolution, okay, where we take down the governments, where we take over these buildings, where we go in and we start from scratch and we rebuild. Everything needs to break. Every single institution needs to come down. The schools, the colleges, you know, our NHS, every single institution that is corrupted by Satanism, because every single institution is corrupted by Satanism. It all needs to break. It needs to shatter. Everything needs to break, and then we rebuild. but every man and woman on this planet needs to stand up and join this revolution, because that's what needs to happen.
Yeah, well said. And yeah, and like I think like what Gabby's doing in Australia too, like if stuff like that can really kick off, you know, you got to build it from somewhere, and she's done a great job. And so, do you want to? We can probably finish up about now, but do you want to let people know where they can go to sort of support you or see what you're doing? I know you're on Telegram. You've got your group page on Facebook. Do you want to just let us know where?
Yeah, so I'm on quite a lot of social medias, but I must admit I'm not very active on them all because I just don't have the time. But my main page at the moment is on Facebook, which is supporting SRA survivors. All my lives are on there. You can learn everything SRA on there. I've literally spent a year doing lives, telling people the ins and outs of SRA, you know. So everything's on there. Yes, I've got a Telegram group, which is exposing satanic ritual abuse.
Yeah.
I am on Twitter, I'm on YouTube. Well, I'm just setting up a better YouTube thing now. But Facebook's really the best way to find me at the moment. And that's where all the current information about what we're doing will be at this point in time. So I can send the links over to you, Dow, anyway, and you can put it up.
Good. I might chuck in that one you did with Shaun too, and a couple of others if people want to watch them too, because he does like it's like a good 2-hour long sort of interview if you want to listen to Jeanette's whole story. So yeah, thanks so much for giving me your time, and I look forward to seeing what's going to happen with on the 16th. So
yeah,
but just keep doing like honestly, you're so powerful when you feel this, and it should just it's just a good example for anyone when you hit that tipping point, and they are terrified of people like that. They are absolutely terrified. And I think you're untouchable when you got that fearlessness. So just you know what to do. Just keep doing what you're doing. Yeah, it'll be fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dale. You know, the support means everything to me. It really does. And it really helps me when other people can see what I know within myself. You know, it's very affirming, and it just brings more life force for me. So thank you for your words as well, because they do mean a lot, and they penetrate. So thank you.
Awesome. All right, thanks, Jeanette. Cheers.
Take care. Bye.